Hey folks, Justin here with Movo. Today we're going to take a look at the BWS1000. This is a professional windshield and suspension system for your shotgun microphone. We'll take a look inside the box, see what it comes with, and then I'll set it up and use it with one of our shotgun microphones. That way you know what to expect when you get one. A few different things inside the box. First up, we have our happy, not happy comment card. Let you know how to reach out to Movo if you have any questions. Definitely check this one out. Then we have the system itself. We'll get around to this one in a moment. You're also going to get a manual. This manual is going to go in a lot more depth about the system, how to set up and use it. Definitely something to keep handy. Then we have some extra suspension bands. These are great because from time to time, you know, when we're hooking things up, we misplace them and lose them, or we're a little too rough with our gear. So having extras of these on hand is definitely going to be helpful. You're also going to get a deadcat windscreen. This is large enough to go over the entire outer blimp. We'll get to that in a little bit though. And last but not least, you get a carrying case or a bag to use with this system, which is fantastic. I'm always throwing things in a larger gear bag, and having everything protected in a little case is always helpful. When we take a look at the system, there's a couple things we want to know. That way we know what we're talking about. First up, this main part here, this is just the main blimp housing. Then you have a front and a rear dome. These both come off. We'll get to that in a moment though. Here on the bottom, you'll notice that we have a couple locking knobs. These two locking knobs on the side allow this entire rail system to slide in and out of the blimp. We also have a locking knob here. This locking knob, as we adjust it, will allow us to move our handle and just pivot it to the exact angle that we want. Once we tighten that back down, we can even adjust where the handle sits along the rail. All we have to do is adjust this knob right here. As we adjust that, it's going to allow us to slide the handle back and forth along that rail. On the bottom of the handle, it is a 3/8 inch thread, but inserted already in there is an adapter for your 1/4 inch. So depending on what you're using, whether it's a tripod or a boom pole, you should be good to go because both of those are pretty standard. And then we have our XLR cable that you will plug into your XLR cable, that will plug into your camera or into your audio recorder, whatever you're using. Twist counterclockwise the rear dome, and once we do that, as long as these knobs here have been loosened up along the rail, we're going to be able to slide this entire inner skeleton of our system from the blimp itself. In here, you'll notice that we have 3 different rings. These 3 rings, along with the suspension bands, are what will hold our microphone. You can also see that we have the other end of the XLR cable. It's going to come already seated in there. It doesn't need to stay in those. You just kind of pull it out or pop it out depending on how you have it in there. And then once you take it out, now you can actually put the microphone in there. But if you do need to adjust either or any of these rings, it's pretty simple to do so. At the base of each one, you just have a knob that you can loosen up. If you only need 2 of them, maybe having 3 of them is getting in the way of certain controls on your shotgun microphone. That's another option you have because these can move back and forth all the way along this rail system, which is pretty nice to have that versatility depending on the mic that you're using. Today I'll be using the VXR100L from Movo. You can use whatever shotgun microphone you have though, anything up to 320 millimeters. In order to hook this up to the system, it's pretty simple. First, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the rear end or wherever the XLR plugs into your microphone is at the rear of the system. If you can't tell which end is the rear, what you want to do is look for the end with the notch. We have a notch there because that's where the XLR cable is going to go through once we slide the blimp back on. You want to take the microphone and just start off by sliding it all the way through. You don't want to snap it in until you get it pretty much where you'd like it to be. Once we get it in here, you do want to make sure that it's far enough forward because if I do it about where it's at now, once I try to put the blimp on, it's going to get caught on the back end. So I want to make sure that I bring this microphone, because of its length, up to just about where the rear of the microphone and where that notch is, making sure they're about in line. Something to consider before you snap the microphone down in place is the location of the switches. You wouldn't want to snap one of these rings down right on top of the on-off switch, for instance. I'm going to take my thumb and place it right under the base of that inner ring. Slowly but firmly just snap it into place. I will repeat this along each of the other 3 rings. Next, you will take the female XLR cable that comes off of the handle itself, and you will plug that in to the rear of your shotgun microphone. Take the wire and kind of pull it down, not too tight, but you don't want a ton of slack on the inside. And then you will place it through the notch. Make sure that you have your rail here in line with the blimps, and we slide it right over. Next, we'll take the rear end, the rear dome, line it up with the arrows, and then we will twist clockwise until it locks. Make sure it doesn't come off. Now, the front end does come off if you need to adjust anything for on the front end. Same thing, turn it counterclockwise, and now you have access to the inside. Do you need some extra protection from the wind? And if you do, you'll want to use the furry windscreen or the deadcat windscreen. On the bottom, there is a zipper. There's 2 little tabs that will let you open it all the way up. The zipper goes a little bit higher up on one end. That's going to be the rear. Take the blimp itself, slide it into the front. It's going to go a little bit deeper into the front there, and then we'll pull this back end over the top. As you can see, the mic is in the shot. Typically, it'd be a little higher, or maybe off to the left or the right of the screen. But for our purposes here, I want you to see about how far away from me it is. From my mouth to the edge of the furry windscreen, we're looking at about 20 to 24 inches away. We'll test it out once with the system as is, with the furry windscreen on there, and with no added elements. And then we'll add in a fan. That way you can see the difference, whether or not there is one, with that wind movement or that airflow. And then we'll take off the furry windscreen, and we'll even take off the dome itself. That way you can see if there are differences between those. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Let's go ahead and cut that fan off. Now, I bet you could tell a pretty big difference as we removed each one of those layers. Starting off with the furry windscreen all the way down to bare bones here, you can tell that there's a huge difference in the amount of airflow that gets picked up by the microphone. As we took off the furry windscreen, you could hear a little bit more of that airflow, but the blimp still did a pretty good job on its own of reducing some of that airflow. Now, once you took everything off, we were just, open to the elements, and you could hear all of that wind. If you heard anything on the furry windscreen, that probably was just the motor itself from the fan. Another great thing about the system is when you're moving around and maybe you have it on a boom and you have it behind your back, or you're holding it over somebody for a long time, any of that handling noise from grabbing onto the grip or any handles, things like that, are going to get reduced dramatically because of these suspension rings right here. So as you use this system or anything else, play around with it. Try turning it in different angles. If you are picking up a little noise that you don't want to, look at what's behind the microphone or behind the subject. Even though this microphone is pointing right here at this little bubble in front of my mouth, is there something back here in the line of sight, so to speak, of the microphone? Try turning it, testing things out, and have fun with it. And there you have it, the BWS1000 professional windshield and suspension system from Movo. I hope this video gave you more information about the system and how you can use it with your microphones. If you have any questions or comments though, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. We love hearing from you all here at Movo. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.